So about 8 months ago, I moved out of my hometown, and it's the best thing I've ever done. So here's why I did it and why you should too. There were definitely a few things that went into this decision, and although it felt like a long process at the time, I really just up and left. To most people around me, this seemed like a terrible decision. My coworkers could not fathom the idea of just up and leaving. My parents were accepting of it, but they definitely had some questions, and I don't blame them. It did not make sense from the outside. To give you some context, I had a great job. The company that I worked for at the time is probably one of the best companies to work for in the world. I wasn't making crazy money at this job, but there was a lot of potential, and I was doing really well with this job and made a great impression on all of my coworkers and all of my superiors in the 3 years that I was there. I had a good amount of freedom outside of work, of course. I graduated from college a few years ago, and I was enjoying the freedom I had outside of my work hours. And to be honest, I really didn't hate being at work. I work with some great people, and it wasn't a bad time. I even still call some of them friends to this day, which I didn't think would happen getting into it. You don't really see your coworkers as friends when you're working with them, but it's funny how when you leave the job, that can all change. So I had this good job. I had some freedom, but what happened was I took a step back and looked around, and I saw the path that I was on. And I also saw where that path led to, and that path scared me to death. As far as I could see, that path looked exactly the same the entire way. Work, save money, pay off student loan debt, car debt, buy a house, pay off that debt, drink on the weekends with friends, numb my brain with social media, YouTube, Netflix, whatever it is. Wake up at 65, retire if I'm lucky, enjoy the next 20 to 30 years, maybe. It felt like disguised comfort the whole way. I don't like the idea of relying on a job and not myself. I was too comfortable with the situation that I was in, and my job had become easy in less than the 3 years that I was there. I didn't really see the pursuit of anything meaningful at the time. On top of that, all of my friends were sold on this dream, working hard for small 5% raises that you really have no control over, jumping to different jobs in hopes for a better day-to-day schedule. Everyone was sold on this dream except for one friend. I met my best friend in college, and we always talk about life in general. When I told him I wanted to leave, he actually encouraged me to make the jump. One of few people that didn't immediately question me and actually gave me some support. He had already made this jump a few months prior, and he was not having a good time, but he understood why he put himself in that situation. So it was good to see that there was someone else that had made the jump and was going through the trials and tribulations of doing it and still seeing the lessons within that experience. So it took me about a month from having the idea to actually leaving, which, like I said before, it felt like it was a long process, but thinking back, it really was a pretty quick move. My current lease was up. I spent a good month with my parents while I finished up at my job after I put in my 2 weeks, and then I left. I made the decision with no plans, so I made them. Found an apartment, looked good, signed a lease. Found a job, looked good, signed up, and I was out. So that's kind of the brief story of what happened, the lead up to leaving. The point of this video, what have I actually learned after being here for 8 months? The first thing I want to talk about isn't something that comes right away. This is something that I've learned more recently, and it's the importance of real relationships. I've lost a lot of friends since I left, but it's for the better. There's a lesson within that as well. Although I've lost some friends, I don't focus on it at all. I've learned that negative is just a lesson, and a lesson is a positive. Through losing those friends, I've become closer with those that are important to me. I have a much deeper appreciation for family, and especially my parents, for being supportive about the whole thing. My parents were pretty protective growing up, out of love, of course. They didn't want to see me go, but they're happy I'm doing something different with my life. The second thing is I have learned that it is impossible to be totally alone. Take it from me, ask anyone close to me, and they will label me as a complete loner. I can spend days and weeks by myself, completely happy to just be doing my own thing. It's just not sustainable. No matter who you are, it doesn't matter. Luckily, I have my best friend who's doing the same thing at the same time in parallel with me in a different place. So we're able to talk regularly and have real conversations. Without the iPhone or airplanes, I don't know if I'd be able to do this, but we don't know. Small talk with coworkers and people you see at the gym are not real conversations. That's small talk. It's a completely different thing. You need to have real connections with real people to have meaning. This made me realize how few real connections I actually had with people prior to me moving, but it's made me appreciate those real relationships even more nowadays. And for the last big lesson that I've learned, and the last one that I want to address for this video, I guess it makes sense to finally explain why I actually made the move in the first place. I've always known that I want more out of life. This isn't something that changed after I made the move. It was one of the bigger reasons for the decision to make the move in the first place. But the importance of seriously pursuing something challenging has brought me a lot of meaning in life. For some context, a few years ago, I decided I wanted to be a producer. I want to play my guitar in my bedroom and sell my beats for a living. But the thing I'm pursuing isn't the point here. The point is that when I was back home, I was working pretty hard on this and I thought I was serious about it, but it just wasn't real enough. I would spend a few hours a week on it. I would make music and post it to social medias, which I thought was good at the time. I had some beats even blow up and make some money off of it, but it just wasn't real enough. And I only realized that when I moved here and took away all excuses and all distractions. And the reason for that is I was too comfortable. I now know I would have never been serious enough to go anywhere with it. Moving away and being alone has stripped me of all excuses and all reasons not to work towards the life that I'm after. If I'm not going to work towards it, what's the point of me even being here? I've already learned how important those real relationships are to me. What's the point of being away from those people if I'm not going to put in the work for a better life for myself? The lesson here speaks to itself. You have to experience things to actually learn the lessons. It's too easy to scroll through YouTube or Instagram and see motivational videos or how-to videos on a skill that you're learning. But the thing is, you don't get anything out of it unless you get in there and take action yourself. That taking action, that's where the learning comes from. For example, can you remember anything that you learned back in high school? Probably not anything specific because you don't use it. You took a test on a subject, you passed the test, you got the grade you needed, and then your mind got rid of it because you didn't use it. You didn't need it anymore. You passed the test. You didn't actually learn anything. This is why I don't want to just tell you the things that I learned from making this move and have that be it. It's why it says you should too in the title. If you're contemplating doing this, you need to experience these things for yourself through your own perspective, because you can go through the same experiences and get a different lesson out of it based on the context of your life. I just had the voice crack there. I finally got it. I'm leaving it. Screw it. That was good enough. Like I said before, me and my best friend are doing this in parallel at the same time. And he's learning different things than I am going through the same experience. So in the last 8 months, I've learned quite a few things about life and how lucky we are to have a shot at this thing. The lessons that I've talked about in this video sum up the big ideas, but there's many things that branch off of these lessons into a million different things. You can kind of sum up the big ideas by just being grateful for the people we have and being grateful for the experiences that we go through and the lessons we learn through those experiences. I made the choice to add some discomfort into my life and learn some things along the way. If you're contemplating doing this, I highly recommend it. There are things you'll learn that you would have never considered if you stayed comfortable. And if things don't work out, nothing is set in stone. You can always just go back. We got one life. Don't take it too seriously. Thank you for watching.